observer les gens est fascinant. Même lorsque nous n'entendons ou ne comprenons pas ce qui est dit, nous saisissons souvent l'essentiel rien qu'en regardant.
Our bodies are constantly communicating. We don't need a PowerPoint presentation. We don't need a stage. We don't need a projector or a screen. We can display what we really feel at any moment, at any time, anywhere we are present.
Le langage corporel fait partie intégrante du fait d'être vivant. Et il s'avère que les gestes peuvent en dire bien plus que les mots. À tel point qu'il nous arrive de joindre le geste à la parole, alors même que notre interlocuteur ne nous voit pas.
What we know is that some emotions are tied very closely to certain body expressions, and that works in both directions because it's hardwired.
The body doesn't lie. You can't fool people unless you're a phenomenal actor, and there are very few of them.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman, Miss Lewinsky.
Most people are no better than flipping a coin in judging deception. It's not faces, it's not by itself, it's not gestures by itself, it's not a certain word by itself, it's not scratching my nose or covering my mouth or being fidgety.
Comprendre la communication non verbale est devenu un outil précieux pour le système judiciaire, ainsi que pour les personnes chargées de la sécurité. C'est un énorme atout pour le monde du marketing. Et la médecine y voit même une possibilité de traitement du stress post-traumatique. Il est très utile et très intéressant de savoir ce que dit vraiment notre corps. Ici, on raconte des histoires. Pas seulement avec des mots, mais avec des images. Une connaissance précise du visage humain est une compétence essentielle. Savoir comment il est construit, comment il fonctionne, et, le plus important, comment il bouge.
What I'm doing is I'm bringing life to something that has no life, and one of the easiest ways to do that is to bring facial expressions and emotions into the face. As you can see, I'm moving the forehead here, so when you're angry, it furrows very quickly, and it can go up, and you're surprised it raises. So there are 43 different muscles in the face, and with those muscles you can make 10,000 plus expressions. So everybody knows a smile is a smile, and a frown is a frown, which makes it easier to buy, but it's also, you gotta get it right, or something seems off.
Rien qu'en observant mon visage, vous pouvez dire si je suis heureux, en colère ou dégoûté. Ces expressions faciales sont connectées à notre cerveau et elles sont les mêmes pour tous les êtres humains. Comment cela se fait-il? Pour répondre à cette question, il faut retourner au tout début de l'humanité.
Put yourself in the position of a human 100,000 years ago. We'd be out there in the wild, worrying about who's going to come and attack us. And there were just nonverbal behaviors. The reason why we had these things in our evolutionary history is because they had value to us in terms of our survival. If we were walking around 100,000 years ago and all of a sudden I see something that I think is a threat, and I went like this, and you saw me do that, you probably would not start charging over there. And so you're getting signal value from what I'm doing without even talking about it, without even expressing the words. And this is immediate and automatic.
Nos visages manifestent la peur de façon involontaire. Regardez ce couple, en voiture sur une route de campagne. Ils ont percuté un élan. Tous deux ont eu la chance de pouvoir raconter leur histoire. Mais l'expression de peur qui se lit sur le visage de la femme ne laisse aucun doute sur ce qu'elle ressent et serait reconnue n'importe où. Cette réaction corporelle est due à des raisons spécifiques.
What that's doing for me is that it allows me to expand my chest. I can take in oxygen because my body's preparing to fight or flee. My eyes get a little larger so I can increase my visual fields so I can see more things. As opposed to when I'm angry, you bring your brows down and you start doing this. So you're narrowing and restricting the visual field so that I am starting to target. Nonverbal behaviors all emerged in our evolutionary history to help us communicate with each other about these very basic needs and motives related to survival. So for example, if we were walking around here 100,000 years ago and I happened to pick up something that I thought maybe we would want to have for dinner, and I picked that thing up and I put that in my mouth and I just went, ugh, like this, and I gave it to you, you probably wouldn't eat it. Well, what's really interesting about facial expressions of emotion is that these specific muscle configurations on our faces occur for a specific reason. The research has shown that wrinkling your nose actually cuts off some of the nasal passages. It helps me not ingest all of this stuff together into my body. And so there's a function to that for me.
When I was 23, I was approached by the FBI to become a special agent. How they found me, I don't know.
Joe Navarro a été agent du FBI pendant 25 ans. Sa spécialité était de déchiffrer le langage corporel. Au moment de partir à la retraite, il était surnommé l'attrapeur d'espions.
I was involved in a program called the Behavioral Analysis Program. And we looked at human behavior so that we could understand it, so that we could interpret it, so we could decode it and use it in our investigations.
Joe Navarro a démasqué des criminels en observant des détails auxquels la plupart d'entre nous n'auraient pas prêté attention.
One of the things that I noticed immediately was how accurate the feet were, and that the feet were actually more accurate often than the face, because by social convention, you're walking down the street, somebody smiles, and you smile back. But your feet have no such association with social convention. You know, the right foot or the left foot will automatically orient towards where the person wants to go. So we'll make facial contact, but our feet are not dedicated to that at all. We have a very ancient part of the brain, the reptilian brain. This has to deal with breathing, eating, basic survival things. On top of that, we have this exquisite system called the limbic system. It evolved to react and to keep us safe. And if it sees a threat, and it doesn't matter whether it's a lion or a tiger or words, it says stop.
Notre système limbique est un peu comme un logiciel fonctionnant en arrière-plan. Que nous le voulions ou non, il influence la façon dont nous bougeons notre corps.
We certainly saw this with Prince Charles and Princess Di. They would literally ventrally deny each other. In a way, the easiest way to teach this is to say, belly away, don't want you to stay. When your limbic system is regulating all of this, it's in the moment. The whole body is transmitting. This is a part of our primate past.
Our ancestors were really good at reading people because if they didn't know who was friend or who was foe, they would be dead. It's as simple as that.
Lillian Glass est experte en langage et communication corporelle. Elle part en observation sur la jetée de Santa Monica.
The body doesn't lie. You can't fool people unless you're a phenomenal actor. Body language can tell you so much. She absolutely adores him. And, you know, he's not really giving her much communication. He's very much aloof. And you can see she's really cornered him, literally. She'd like a lot more than he's giving. And she's pulling on his shirt. She really wants to get attention. They've disconnected. She's gone over to the side, her head is down, and it's not happening. And she's resigned herself to just look at the ocean. There's not a lot of bonding there. There's not touching, there's not communication. So there's some tension in that relationship. When I look at people, I look at the whole person. I don't just look at one thing. One of the things I look for is how close do the couple stand to one another? Also, how are their toes pointed? If your toes are pointed in the direction of your partner, chances are that you're in good shape. They absolutely adore one another. It's such a kind of a beautiful dance to watch this couple. They're really connected. They're absolutely in sync. He kisses her forehead with such love and affection and tenderness. And they look right into each other's eyes. Very, very enamored with him and vice versa. How long have you two been together?
A year.
A year. And has it always been this beautiful and,
Yes,
and like a dance?
Yes.
How did you two meet?
In a company.
A company you worked together?
Yes.
And you just fell in love?
Yes.
I got interested in body language because I started out as a speech pathologist, and I was working with people from all walks of life.
Because they thought I looked too feminine.
Something from the bar.
Isn't that amazing?
Please, could you get me a double vodka right away?
The first person I worked with was Dustin Hoffman.
For the lady?
Oh, how about a Dubonnet with a twist?
Yes, ma'am.
I was the one that taught him how to sound like a woman for Tootsie.
You're not gonna get away with this.
I got away with it. Look around.
And then it kind of grew and started doing a lot of media and wrote 18 books on communication and body language and dealing with toxic people. And here I am. What I'm doing is very systematic, but you may do it automatically. How many times have you said, nah, I don't like that person? Or you turn on the television, nah, they're lying, I can't stand them.
I would build a great wall, and nobody builds walls better than me, believe me.
Donald Trump. Whether you love him or you hate him, the bottom line is he is a great communicator.
Are you running? Are you not running?
His body language, he doesn't care, he makes facial expressions, but he's real.
What is our country coming to?
And that's what's coming across. There's not phoniness that we've seen so much in our politicians, where they're gesturing like this. Trump gestures like this.
I will be the greatest jobs president that God ever created.
I trust my guts. I trust my instincts. And that emotion tells you, that's not right. He's full of it. Oh, he's telling the truth. So that emotion tells you, and that's called your gut level communication.
Alors que notre instinct nous aide à interpréter le langage corporel des autres, ce que nous faisons avec notre propre corps se produit souvent sans que notre volonté intervienne.
Once you have a thought, before it gets to the voice box, it has to go through the area of the brain that controls my hands. And this is neurologically true for everybody. Once I'm going to verbalize a thought, it makes me move my hands. So doing this is not just a communicative value. It's not just having signal value to you who are watching this. It's helping me think. The fact of the matter is our gestures are not just communicative, because when you're on the phone and I'm on the phone, we're also gesturing, even though we know that the person can't see us. That's the way we are created. The body just expresses or embodies what's going on in our minds.
Comment décoder le langage corporel de façon systématique? Commençons par le visage.
The body doesn't lie, and neither does the face, because the face is connected with a lot of facial nerves and 12 cranial nerves. And when you have an emotion, these nerves fire and muscles start moving. The psoas muscle, you either smile or you're frowning. The masseter muscles, if you're angry, something happens here in your jaw.
But once it's triggered, something in my mind says, okay, I'm emotional. Our brains tell us to fire a package of components. One set of components has to do with our physiology. One set of components has to do with our cognitions. And one set of components has to do with our expressive behavior in our hands and our face and all that. So that one that goes along that one facial nerve that lights up our faces.
Au cours des 40 dernières années, tous les mouvements effectués par les muscles de notre visage ont été étudiés, analysés et répertoriés selon un système de codage appelé FACS.
Well, FACS is the acronym for the Facial Action Coding System. It breaks down every functional anatomical movement that the face can make. And it codifies each muscle movement by a certain number. So whenever a person is moving their face for whatever reason, a trained observer can learn how to identify which muscle is creating that appearance change. Let's say there's an expression of fear that occurs. I could break down this prototypic expression of fear as, in FACS codes, it would be a 1, a 2, a 4, 5, 7, 20 with 26.
Les chercheurs ont identifié 7 expressions reconnues universellement. La joie, la surprise, le mépris, la tristesse, la colère, le dégoût et la peur. Le professeur Matsumoto est ceinture noire de judo. Sa passion pour ce sport l'a conduit aux Jeux olympiques d'Athènes en 2014. L'occasion pour lui de mener une expérience en photographiant les visages des compétitrices et compétiteurs.
So here are some examples of images that we selected for analysis. We then code the muscle movements in the face using the facial action coding system. We know, of course, when the person has won, there's a very large expression of joy, that happiness. The happiness expression has the muscle around the eye that's innervated. It puffs out the cheeks. It gives a little shine. It's exactly the same muscles that are innervated right here, the prototypic expression of joy. So we did the same kind of study with the Paralympic Games that happened in Athens 2 weeks after the cited Olympics. The blind athletes did exactly the same kinds of facial expressions as the sighted athletes did. Now, why is this important? It's important because most of these blind athletes were blind from birth. There's no way they could possibly have learned to produce these expressions by seeing anybody else. That means that the only rational explanation is that we are all born with the ability to produce these expressions. It's an innate ability of ours.
So here we are at a hotel lobby. It's a great place to people watch. Here we have 3 women, and we notice, how often they either touch each other or signal to each other. And this just tells us they've known each other for a while. Now, one of the ways that we can tell when people are standing and talking is how relaxed they are. And we notice that the woman just crossed her leg, one in front of the other. And this is a high comfort display. We only do that when we're comfortable around other people. We know that this family gets along really well. We know this just from the amount of tactile activity we're observing, that there's a lot of touching between the father and the son. And this is always a good indicator of a positive relationship. And so we see the young lady fixing the other girl's hair, and we think of it as this is merely for aesthetic purposes. That's only part of it. By grooming other people, it stimulates the hair follicles, and it sends signals to the brain that add to psychological comfort.
En général, nous percevons instinctivement si les gens se sentent bien ensemble. Mais en réalité, beaucoup d'entre nous tentent de dissimuler leurs émotions, pour être polis ou pour cacher quelque chose à quelqu'un. Les experts savent-ils détecter les tromperies?
There is no Pinocchio effect. There's not one single behavior indicative of deception. The paradigm that I like to use is comfort and discomfort, that humans are very binary. We are either crying as a baby or we're quite satisfied. People are either very comfortable or they're struggling with something. If you're not an expert on body language, it's a good place to at least begin. You will see everything from lip biting, squinting, lip compression, furrowing of the forehead, displacement of the jaw. They might go, We might do a cleansing behavior where we wipe our hands on our legs. If we're really stressed, you often see people pull their socks up, and they're literally ventilating their skin down by the feet. They may actually dimple their cheeks. They put pressure on themselves. Or they may wring their hands. They literally wring their hands. The person may run his fingers through his hair, or women do it back here. Even a light touching of the neck is suggestive that something's wrong. We humans do that a lot. There may be covering of the suprasternal notch. We go, oh my God, that happened? So we look at all these behaviors and say, okay, I asked a question, and this is their reaction. Now the question is, why? Why are they behaving like this?
Lorsqu'on est mal à l'aise, nos muscles faciaux peuvent émettre des mouvements difficiles à repérer, et encore plus, à contrôler. Il s'agit de micro-expressions.
Micro-expressions are quick, extremely quick, fleeting facial expressions of emotion. They happen when you're emotional, but you're in a situation where you're trying to control your expressions. If you can imagine, there's a neural tug of war that's fighting for control over your face. The concept of microexpressions started with Darwin in the book, The Expression of Emotion in Man and Animals. Basically, Darwin stated that sometimes we are so overwhelmed with emotion that despite our best attempts to control them, they leak out.
Let's say, for example, somebody walks in the room and you can't stand them, but you're gonna smile at them anyway because it's your boss. So you go, hi. You automatically have that snarl, but you don't see that snarl. It happens really fast.
So the microexpressions are the leakage that's occurring because of this neural tug of war in situations where I'm emotional, but I'm trying to hide it.
L'aéroport international de Miami est l'un des plus fréquentés des États-Unis. 45 millions de passagers s'y croisent chaque année. Les voyageurs et leurs bagages sont contrôlés de diverses manières. Mais vous pouvez être sûr que dans un aéroport, votre langage corporel est surveillé de près.
First of all, we have to know what are our threats, and then what are the behaviors associated with those threats.
These are your bags?
Excuse me, who's the owner of these bags over here? Back up, just trying to stay with me. Those are yours? So you said it.
The behavior of an individual dropping a bag and walking away from it should raise a red flag.
Okay.
Behavior is more than just how a person acts. It's about their facial expressions, their body language, and it's something that we have to intuitively be able to evaluate in a split second here.
We actively scan the public looking for something that
It's just not right. How they're dressed, how they're acting, are they engaged, are they disengaged, are they zoned out, are they wanting to avoid any kind of contact with other people, are they trying not to be noticed?
Il y a 10 ans, Lauren Stover a eu une idée décisive. Former l'ensemble du personnel de l'aéroport à la détection des comportements.
As long as we hire from the human race, there will always be threats to deal with. And I knew that I had 40,000 troops working here at this airport that I could use to help me with security.
Tous les employés de l'aéroport suivent une formation à la détection des comportements. Les agents d'enregistrement, les mécaniciens, les bagagistes, ainsi que le personnel d'entretien.
And a lot of behavior detection is intuitive. And we're just using the basic intuition in all of us to just kind of tweak it, refine it, and give the employees that tool to be able to use it as they assist the passengers.
You know, we have a brown uniform, you may have a blue uniform. The fact is that our mission is very similar.
Lors de sessions comme celle-ci, les employés de l'aéroport de Miami apprennent les bases de la reconnaissance comportementale.
You guys are most important assets in the war against not only terrorism, but criminal activity.
Les employés sont formés à observer et repérer tout ce qui pourrait différer d'un comportement normal. Trop d'allers-et-retours, des signes de la main, une nervosité excessive.
As you know, we have to get it right every day because the terrorists only need one shot.
L'aéroport de Miami utilise également des méthodes plus conventionnelles.
There's thousands of cameras here at Miami International Airport. That's the marriage between behavior detection and technology. What's interesting is their clothing and choice of clothing. Somebody's going to go to the Bahamas. They're not going to be wearing bulky clothing. We can look for a person's hands. Their hand movement is very important. We have to try to keep an eye on everybody's hands.
We don't have the large canine teeth that other predators have. And so we focus on the hands, we look for the hands to say, are they welcoming or are they aggressive?
The two suicide bombers in Brussels with the glove on their hands, that should have stood out as an anomaly.
Dans les aéroports, on veille à ce que les passagers n'emportent pas d'objets dangereux dans l'avion. Ici, l'objectif est différent. Empêcher les personnes potentiellement dangereuses de monter à bord. Il ne s'agit pas tant de technologie que de psychologie sociale, de développer la capacité à lire les gens.
When I started in law enforcement, it was mostly anecdotal information. If you touch your nose, you're lying. If you touch your mouth, you're lying. Well, you know, that's just sheer nonsense.
Most people are no better than flipping a coin in judging deception. When people are doing the shifty eyes thing, whether their eyes up and to the left or down and to the right or whatever that is, they're lying. That's a big myth.
À l'université de la Colombie-Britannique, un petit groupe de recherche travaille sur le mensonge et le langage corporel.
Through evolution, it appears that there's been an arms race between reading other people and other people controlling what they want us to see. That's the first time you told a lie all day.
Ces études sont menées par le psychologue judiciaire Stephen Porter. Son équipe se penche sur les interactions entre les gens et sur les différentes techniques utilisées pour essayer de se tromper les uns les autres.
Liars or insincere individuals are expected to fidget a lot. They're expected to look very nervous, maybe shift around in their seat. And scientifically, the real tells are the opposite of that.
I want you to listen to me. I'm going to say this again.
So if you watch Bill Clinton, for example, in his denial of having sex with Miss Lewinsky, he's burning holes through people in the audience. He's picking particular individuals and he's just staring them down.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
If we look at his nonverbal behavior as well as his verbal behavior during that claim, he comes across as extremely convincing, as extremely sincere.
I never told anybody to lie.
Whether he's a trained liar, we don't know, but he's certainly a very skilled liar.
Not a single time, never.
He conveys anger and hostility at the idea that anybody was thinking he was even lying.
These allegations are false.
He's using this thing we call an illustrator very, very effectively.
And I need to go back to work for the American people.
It's an intimidation tactic, it's a power and control thing, and it's an attention grabber.
Thank you.
Human beings lie to one another on average 1 to 2 times per day. If you have a pair of human strangers who interact, within 10 minutes they're lying to each other on average 3 times. And so we see deception, in everyday life, little white lies, all the way up to more high stakes lies. But it's a really fundamental aspect of social interaction. So our research group decided to undertake the largest scale study of high stakes deception ever conducted. And that entailed collecting videos from all over the world of people pleading for the return of a missing relative. So in 2008, Carissa Boudreau in Nova Scotia went missing, and her mother, Penny Boudreau, gave an impassioned plea to the public to try to assist in finding her missing daughter.
So please determine if the individual in the following video is being honest.
La conférence de presse de Penny Boudreau est utilisée comme base de travail.
I'll leave the room throughout your discussion, and please let me know when you're finished, and I will return and hear your verdict.
Your grandparents are looking for you. All of us are. I don't know where you are, but just come home or call or something, please. All your friends are looking for you, and we're all worried. We just want you home safe.
Thank you for coming today.
Thank you.
Good luck.
She looked distressed, clearly.
Yeah.
She was crying a lot.
Were they real tears?
Of course they were. She was wiping them.
Yeah, you got a point there. She was wiping them right off.
Her voice was cracking.
Yeah, very true.
It was really
She's
sad.
exhausted.
I don't think you would go on national TV if you were lying. I just don't think you would.
I don't know where you are, but just come home or call or something.
So the interesting thing about the Penny Boudreau video is that she shows a classic sign of emotional deception. She is attempting to appear distressed because her daughter is missing, but she's not showing an engagement of the distressed muscles, which are the corrugators, in between the eyes, which generally when somebody is distressed, they go together and up. The deceptive pleaders generally are unable to engage those muscles, and they end up looking more like a deer in the headlights. They look surprised.
I took her for a drive that day just to try to have a heart-to-heart with her in a place, like in a car she can't get away and slam her door, which she usually does to me.
In this frame and a couple of frames after it, Penny displays hostility both in her facial expression and in the words she uses and her tone of voice, indicating that she's still very upset, angry with Carissa for one reason or another. She doesn't want the world to know that she's feeling that, but it's coming out involuntarily.
Can I ask you what this has been like as a mother?
Penny responds to the question from the interviewer with a flash of anger and hostility. She knows that her daughter is dead. The interviewer is asking questions that are getting a little too close to home.
Stephen Porter a fait part des conclusions de son équipe aux enquêteurs de la police, qui ont ensuite concentré leurs recherches sur Penny Boudreau elle-même.
Eventually, they got information that she had in fact murdered her daughter because her boyfriend, the suspect, had mentioned one day he didn't think he was ready to be a father.
Thank you.
One thing that I've learned that really surprised me was the extent, the magnitude of information that we're conveying any moment via our body language, our facial expressions, and what we're saying. Even psychopathic liars, who are some of the best around us, aren't able to control, quote-unquote, leakage via at least one of these different communication channels.
Il n'y a pas que le visage qui révèle les pensées. La façon de marcher d'une personne peut en dire long.
And imagine we're in the savannah in Africa, as early man was, and they're looking on the horizon and they see people walking. What's their gait? Because that's really what they can see. Are they walking towards us, away from us? Are they walking aggressively?
Notre démarche peut exprimer beaucoup de choses. Elle peut révéler nos intentions, notre état d'esprit et notre forme physique. À l'université Queen's au Canada, des chercheurs étudient le mouvement biologique. Dirigée par Nicolaus Strozzi, l'équipe s'intéresse à la façon dont le cerveau humain interprète instinctivement les mouvements des gens.
People spend a lot of time watching other people, and we've become experts in it. When we talk about body language, it's a signal which is in a way much more honest than facial expression because it's much harder to fake and it's much harder to control. The humans apparently are very, very efficient in decoding the information which is contained in the way humans move. If you feel something is odd or if you feel uncomfortable with someone who is moving, a system kicks in that knows if something is not quite right. What I'm showing you here is 15 dots on the screen, and you might be able to make out a human behind those dots, but that changes dramatically if I set it into motion. So if this one moves, you can't help but seeing a person here. You see more than just a person. You can determine whether, or you can at least make a good guess whether this here is a male. So you see here this lateral body sway, and you see the shape of the male changing a little bit with wider shoulders and narrower hips. On the other hand, you see this clearly a woman here with very different movement, so more vertical movement here, less lateral body sway, more movement in the hips here. You can see more than the gender of the walker. I can make it more relaxed here. We can make the woman a little more happy here. You see that vertical bounciness and the swing in the motion here. And I've always been fascinated by how much information apparently there is in the way people appear. And what fascinates me most is really the sophistication of the information that we can retrieve from it. The human visual system does it without thinking. We just do it. So obviously, the way we feel affects the way we pose our body and also the way we move. But interestingly, the way we move can also have effects on the way we feel.
So we're really fascinated with body language, and we're particularly interested in other people's body language. You know, we're interested.
Voici l'une des conférences TED les plus regardées de tous les temps, avec plus de 36 millions de vues. L'oratrice est la psychologue sociale américaine Amy Cuddy.
They judge us and what the outcomes are. We tend to forget, though, the other audience that's influenced by our nonverbals, and that's ourselves.
Amy Cuddy est professeure à la Harvard Business School. Son travail sur les postures de pouvoir l'a rendue célèbre. D'après elle, la façon dont nous nous tenons peut augmenter l'estime de soi et le sentiment de puissance.
Your body and your mind are constantly in conversation with each other, and your body is largely driving that conversation. Why not take control of that? Why not have your body tell your mind that you're safe and powerful, rather than having your body tell your mind you're not safe, you're not powerful? So if you take non-human primates, I mean, you see them expand their chests, pound their chests. They do things to make themselves appear bigger than the other individuals in their hierarchy. You see this kind of body language across the animal kingdom. And similarly, when animals feel powerless, they do exactly the opposite. They make themselves tiny. Humans are animals as well, and we do the same kinds of things.
Le langage corporel s'exprime tout particulièrement à travers la danse.
In the classical ballets, the female lead character is usually either dead or half dead. She's fragile and frail, and by the end, she's all, withered up on the floor like the dying swan. In more contemporary ballet, you see a lot more expansiveness in the female lead characters. So think of Alvin Ailey Dance Theater, where so many of the ballets are about liberation and freedom and power. I think it's a really dangerous message that we send to our daughters, that femininity is tied to being fragile and frail and you know, wrapping oneself up. The haka is a really powerful dance that's performed by the New Zealand national rugby team called the All Blacks. They'll be facing the other team and going through this series of really powerful postures. It's kind of beautiful and intimidating at the same time. The important thing to understand about the haka is that it's really not primarily about intimidating the other side. It is primarily about preparing themselves for a challenging situation.
Do we have those displays in other cultures? Well, we do. In a sense, when a president or a head of state arrives and they review the troops, that is a stationary haka. The troops are usually very tall, very resplendent in their uniform, and we look at them and we inspect them. And we say, okay, you guys look pretty tough. At essence, they are really displays of who we are, and what we can do. And what's fascinating is it's all nonverbal.
31st International between New Zealand. Dans la vie quotidienne, nous utilisons toutes et tous la communication non verbale. Et nos corps révèlent souvent aux autres ce que nous ressentons.
When we walk and we're sad, we walk in this slouched way. And when we walk and we're happy, we're walking in a more erect posture and we're, you know, swinging our arms more and, you know, our stride is longer. So getting people to walk in a happy way makes them feel happier, even if they have no idea what they're doing. This is a really new area of research that some people call embodiment. And I don't think we know exactly what the mechanism is. I think what we know is that some emotions are tied very closely to certain body expressions, and that works in both directions because it's hardwired.
Where's it at?
I think some of the most promising applications of this work, and we're just at the beginning of this now, but are in the area of treating people with things like post-traumatic stress.
Come on.
Post-traumatic stress is the most extreme form of powerlessness.
Where we at? Where we at? Where is it?
People feel that their bodies in some way betrayed them by not getting them out of an unsafe situation. They really carry trauma in their bodies.
Heads up, they're shooting the wall.
Combat veterans with post-traumatic stress in particular are maybe less likely to want to talk about their situation. And so these body-based therapies are proving to be really effective.
Red smoke's out!
Teaching people to sit upright and open their chests and breathe more deeply is, in fact, calming the nervous system. It is communicating through the vagus nerve with the mind, right? It's telling the vagus nerve that you're not in a fight or flight situation, you're in a rest and digest situation, that you are safe. I'm really hopeful that we're going to learn more about how to use body-based interventions to treat psychological disorders. And people can do these things so easily, they can change their breathing so easily, that it's really proving to be quite effective.
À Amsterdam, au musée des sciences Nemo, une exposition destinée aux enfants les aide à décoder les différentes expressions faciales. Ils découvrent que les expressions du visage sont universelles et communes à toutes les cultures. Roberto Valenti et ses collègues ont participé à l'élaboration de l'exposition. Ils travaillent sur un projet bien particulier avec l'Université d'Amsterdam.
We're teaching computers to understand the body language of humans.
L'objectif de l'équipe de Roberto Valenti est de proposer une analyse rapide et précise des expressions faciales à partir d'un logiciel d'imagerie et d'algorithmes.
So here, when I deform a mouth and raise my corners of the mouth, you will have an happiness expression. If I wrinkle my nose, you would have disgust. The focus of Psycorp is mainly on recognizing the signals that come from your face. And of course, you can use this signal for many different applications. You can see basically.
L'application peut être utilisée à des fins de marketing, pour mesurer la réaction d'un consommateur à une publicité, par exemple.
Imagine that you can target your advertisement depending on who is in front of it. That's a very interesting return of investment for the advertiser. And now we can really fine-tune what ad is being displayed, depending on the target group.
Ainsi, quand nous regardons une publicité, la publicité nous regarde aussi. Et elle peut s'adapter en fonction de qui la regarde.
This is a demonstration of a narrowcasting application, which will be targeting advertisement to the group of people that are in front of the advertisement screen. And you can see here now we have a majority of male in the camera. When the male get out of the picture, we can see that the commercial switches to a female advertisement, and we can go back in. It switches back to a male advertisement. The computer needs to understand the human in order to be able to deliver to the human. So not only understand the human in terms of voice recognition, but also gestures and facial expressions.
The first one.
We can also apply this into direct human-computer interaction, but human-robot interaction. For instance, a robot would be able to understand the body language.
The sensitive response.
So to really establish a much more natural form of communication. So far, computers have not really tapped in this kind of information. And when computer can learn like a human and can interact to human like a human, I think that's where the interesting consequences and promises of human-computer interaction can appear. Left, or I'm looking right, out.
I'm really excited about the developing technologies, but I also believe that the old-fashioned human observational approach is a critical component. That being able to closely observe holistically, you have an advantage that machines never will.
Pourtant, rien ne semble arrêter la progression des machines. Elles sont de plus en plus présentes dans notre vie quotidienne. Scanners d'empreintes digitales, logiciels de reconnaissance de l'iris, impression des paumes de la main. Et si la reconnaissance de la démarche n'est pas encore une réalité, cela ne saurait tarder.
I think that we've just scratched the surface for understanding the complexity of our bodies and all of the expressive channels that we have, whether it's face, hands, posture, gait, and we are getting some glimpses of how important it is and how interesting it is, but how complex it is.
It's interesting. Once you explain things, you begin to talk to people about body language, they say, oh, well, that's just common sense. And then when you say, well, how often in the past did you notice neck touching or ventilating or, the pinching of the corner of the mouth to show contempt?
People really reveal themselves when you stop and look and decipher what's really going on. And we don't do that enough.
I've learned that nonverbals are more accurate than the spoken word. That's true. But I think my family would tell you there is a burden when you can read people with exactitude. You see things even before they see them. You see marriages falling apart months in advance. That's hard.
Why are we doing this? And I think it behooves every scientist to have an answer. I think the ultimate goal of a better understanding of human behavior is the improvement and betterment of society for the ages. The reason why I'm going to be watching these videos for the next 5 years of these studies that we've got is so that we can give that information to others so that somebody can improve our society for some reason, keep us safer, take the criminal off the street, or do something that does us some good.
The day will come when we will have a much deeper understanding of body language. The question is, what will we do with that?